Welcome everyone to the DLE Leadership Experience First Virtual Ownership Workshop. For our first venture into virtual workshop programming, we have a terrific turnout. Over 30 people joined us to talk about a topic that has become increasingly challenging in the work from home times due to COVID-19. My name is Marcus Coleman. I'm a member of the DLE Advisory Board and a 4-time alum of the DLE Gen Now Retreat. If you haven't been to a retreat, it's unbelievable. Visit our website, dle.dule.com. I'm also a newcomer to the Berkshires, having moved here in February to begin a new career as a registered client service associate at Raymond James in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I'll be the moderator for today's workshop. In that role, I'd like to remind everyone to adjust your settings, to have your microphone and camera switched off. Also, this event is being recorded, will be available for viewing through all our DLE social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and the DLE website. Let me review a few ground rules. Ground rules are a staple of our in-person workshop, and we'll integrate them here. Do your best to stay focused, minimize distractions for the next hour. I'm sure working from home has given everyone great experiences in practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness just means being present in the moment. Resist temptations to multitask, which I know might be difficult if you do have kids. I encourage everyone to take notes. Also utilize the chat box to ask questions, to share comments. This will truly enhance your learning experience. We're going to have a 15-minute slot dedicated to Q&A after Ben takes us through his slides. We definitely want to hear from you. Also, we'd like to hear from you after today's workshop. You'll be receiving a link to a quick poll that will take a few minutes to complete. Your ideas and comments boost our future planning. Your feedback is valued. Finally, use today's workshop to inspire a follow-up action for you to better manage your calendar and routine. And now, I'm excited to welcome our guest speaker, Ben O'Shaughnessy, to share proven tips and techniques for owning your schedule.
All right, Marcus, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to this evening's sponsor, DLE & Co., and the entire DLE community, and of course, a special thank you to Linda for inviting me to lead this evening's conversation as this community navigates transition into this new digital environment we find ourselves in today. My name is Ben O'Shaughnessy. I'm a consultant with a firm called Maverick & Boutique based in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. We do leadership and workplace development training for organizations across sectors, from nonprofits, libraries, the private sector, and public sector organizations through and through, as where I got my career started in New York State government. First got started out in emergency preparedness, developing training for first responders, where I developed this interest right here in bringing change through training and leadership. I was then selected to be part of the 2015-17 Excelsior Fellowship Program, a governor's leadership development program, where I served at the Office of General Services. I'm also a veteran. I currently serve in the United States Army Reserve, now for almost 10 years. I deployed in 2017 to Cameroon for almost 9 months. Much of my experience I'm going to draw on tonight comes from having the privilege to have coached and mentored a number of fellow soldiers on achieving their personal and professional goals. I live in upstate New York, just over the border in Canaan, New York, with my wife Brenna, who's a local health and business coach. We just welcomed our son Henry into this world. Henry was born about five or 6 weeks ago. We consider him, I guess, what you would call a COVID baby, having known nothing different than social distancing, and something I hope I get the chance to maybe talk about tonight, my accidental hobby, treasure hunting. But first, we're going to take a minute to hear from you guys. All kind of challenges with time and attention, challenges right now facing all of us. We can't escape it right now. We're in the middle of this global pandemic, COVID-19. I just want to put this question out for everybody. type your responses into the chat, as Marcus said, and he'll read off a selection of the responses. Since working from home became everyone's norm, what is a specific challenge that you are facing in managing your routine or schedule? So again, take a little less than a minute, type in some challenges. Maybe you're looking at that photo right there, that husband and wife right there. Maybe that looks a little bit like your house right now. I don't know if that's 10, 11 o'clock in the morning and they're still in their pajamas, just getting going with the day, having breakfast, trying to get some work done while kids in the background trying to do homeschooling right now.
So yeah, Ben, what we're seeing a lot in the chat right now is people having trouble separating their work from their home experience. We're having a lot of people with kids that are saying they don't know how to give the time to their kids and keep it away from work versus the balance on that. We have a lot of people that are saying that it's difficult to be in the same location all the time. These are problems everyone's facing, so it's good to hear that everyone is.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. And this has been a lot of the discussions we've been having locally and conversations I've been having in my professional network all over. And the one thing I can say to everybody here is we're all going through this together. We might be physically separated, but we're definitely not alone in this experience. So keep that in mind. But for today's workshop, whether there's a global pandemic or not, or another crisis taking place, I think these challenges are universal. I'm just going to read a quick quote. I'm definitely going to take a course on time management as soon as I can fit it into my schedule. Maybe that rings true to you up until about 10 minutes ago when you jumped on this workshop. But I can say right now, just by participating tonight, you're already ahead of the pack. Just want to point everybody to that image right there. Before the world was upside down, it certainly felt like things were spinning really fast all around us. Endless distractions, alerts come from social media, email, text messages, all kinds of competing priorities for our precious time, our most valuable resource, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But ultimately, my goal this evening is to equip you with a few basic concepts and tools that you can apply to your life, no matter what's going on in the world around you. So first, I just want to clear up some misconceptions and provide some clarity around the term time management. It's something that's been with us in the workforce for quite a while. And just the idea that we truly can't manage time. It's a finite resource, but we can't slow down the clock. We can't turn it back. We're all aging with every second that passes. That is something that's completely unavoidable. We're only getting 168 hours in this week. So the real question is, how do we manage ourselves? And even better, to the title of this workshop and this workshop series, ownership. Do we really have true ownership when we spend our days reacting to things that are outside our control, from the news cycle to social media to uninvited requests for our attention? Do we really have ownership of our schedule when we arrive at work and our inbox is overflowing and our calendar already overbooked? Do we really have ownership of our life when we leave work for the day, get home, trying to prepare dinner with the family, and we're just feeling our work life encroaching more and more into our personal life? That's more how I want to frame this conversation this evening. And before we do, I just also I want to take a step back and just take a little bit look at some historical perspective about this. It's 2020. I think sometimes we can look at everything that we're feeling and feel like this is something new. This must be because of the internet and email and social media. This is why everything feels like it's just spinning out of control, and we're feeling so many pressures on our time and attention. Well, that's true. Technology and the internet, all these things are certainly adding new challenges and new elements. This is not a new question. And to this quote right here from Lucius Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, Roman statesman from the 1st century, he said, "Life is long if you know how to use it." And I think that's one of the real questions that we're trying to examine tonight. But before we take a look at some of these tools, some of these challenges that we're all facing, I want each and every one of us to ask ourselves these questions. What does living a good life look like to you? What are your goals, and how are you going to get there? Before you try to set out what your priorities are for any given day, make sure you've taken the time to do that work in advance. Okay, so now we're just going to talk about routine, mastering the basics. The first step to self-ownership is building a solid routine, without a doubt. Mastering the basics so we set ourselves up to take on the really hard challenges that get thrown at us throughout the day. And to start this conversation, I'm gonna turn this over to Admiral William McRaven, retired U.S. Navy SEAL and the former Chancellor of the University of Texas. This is a speech that he gave to the class of 2015 at the U of UT Austin.
Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
All right. Thank you, Admiral McRaven, for that. Remember that quote: if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. Maybe you're like me and you can't make your bed first thing in the morning. I happen to wake up before my wife every morning, but we can still ask ourselves, what else can you do to get yourself started, give yourself a little bit of momentum and start checking those things off your to-do list. It's very important right now as we're all kind of hunkered down in our homes. We're working out of our houses. One great thing I heard just last week on a very similar webinar, someone said one thing that they try to do every day, even if they don't leave their house, is they try to put on their shoes. For full disclosure, for this presentation, I put on my shoes. I even put on my dress shoes and put on this jacket just so I felt like I was more set up and to deliver this presentation to the best of my abilities. So keep this in mind. It's the little things in life that matter. So right now there's a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity in the world. We don't know what the next month or two is going to look like. And kind of in the consulting world, I see this term thrown around a little bit, VUCA. But right here, right now, a routine is going to help ground you and help you find comfort amidst all this uncertainty and feeling of chaos going on all around us. We don't want to be out there in the front feeling like the guy at the front of this raft right now, just getting thrown around by all the waves and all the rapids that are hitting us. We want to be more grounded, and we want to go into our day just right. So when it comes to building a routine, I really encourage people first to build a foundation in it. This way, as life circumstances change, you get a new job, you get married, you have a baby, whatever comes your way, you're able to quickly adapt, incorporate new elements to your routine to fit your current reality. So in order to do that, first I recommend setting clear and achievable goals. And with that, I encourage you to get granular and then break it out into micro steps. So we'll just take, for example, I want to get into shape. Okay, well, what does that look like to you? Well, I'd like to lose 5 pounds in the next 30 days. So the question is, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to start running. I'm going to start doing that every morning. So by trying to take this first step in building a running routine, you might find out that you actually first need to focus on waking up a little bit earlier so you have the time to do that. So that might mean that, okay, I'm just going to set my clock back every morning 10 minutes and try to get up every day. And that leads in my next point, minimizing friction. So just you continuing with the running example, maybe that might mean putting a glass of water out by the alarm clock. So as soon as you wake up and turn that thing off, you can hydrate. Or sleep in your workout clothes with your shoes laid out next to your bed. Other thing I like to talk about is using guide rails, and that's just anything that helps give you a structure to help you build that new habit. So for me, when I was first getting interested in meditation, I knew I was going to be able to sit down for 10, 15, 20 minutes quietly. So in order to do that, I downloaded a meditation app that kind of did the free trial, and that helped help kind of show me the way through, starting at 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and building my way up to the point where I could go 20 minutes and beyond. And to that too, I'd say also the next point, start implementing incrementally. Back to running. Maybe you don't start running with a marathon, but you start out just by getting out there and running a mile, recognizing that by doing that, you've already conquered 90% of the challenge, and that's just getting up and getting out the door that morning. Also important, building accountability. So, there's all kinds of apps and trackers and different things that we can do. My personal opinion, sometimes those can actually just become another distraction, something that keeps us tethered to our phones. But other things I like to consider for accountability, one thing is pay for it or invest. By doing that, by putting some money, getting some skin in the game, you create consequences if you don't follow through. Or look to a friend, maybe someone who has similar goals, or someone who has already mastered what you're trying to achieve, and just someone you can check in with and make sure you're sticking to it. So next, elements of routine. Look, everybody's different. I'm going to say that there's no one size fits all solution. We all know that we got to eat right, we got to get sleep, we need to exercise, and really with all those things, I really encourage you to find what works for you and what aligns with your goals. But for a group like this, where I'd probably peg that there's a number of high achievers in the group. One thing I want to make sure that you're doing, I'd recommend, is building time in for stillness and reflection. Many of us are knowledge workers, and we need our brains to function. And in order to do that, we got to give it a rest. We also need to be able to step outside the daily noise in order to think clearly and think deeply about some of the complex tasks in front of us. And just in reading different biographies, leadership groups, I more and more find many different leaders, historical figures that have written about this. And when asked, what are some regrets from your career, often they'll point to not doing this, setting out time for reflection as they're going through all the motions of life. And to this point, I just encourage people, hey, get a hobby. For those of us who are high achievers, this can be the best way to find stillness. And this is just finding something that we do for enjoyment, not for competition, not for social status or anything like that. We just get out there, and it helps quiet our mind a little bit. It maybe helps us use a different part of our brain that we don't normally use in our career. On this slide here, I use the example of Winston Churchill. Right now in this global pandemic, there have been a lot of comparisons made to World War II. Last time we all kind of came together to fight a common enemy. And Winston Churchill, he was the leader of Great Britain during that period. And during many of the great periods of that conflict, he was known for at times disappearing to the English countryside. Where he'd go and he'd paint landscapes. And that's just what he would do. And there's over 1,000 biographies written about him, and he appears in a lot of his example in a lot of different routine or time management books. And he always credited this as giving himself that space to think deeply about the major issues that were going on in the world at the time. And some of his best speeches were given when he was able to carve out that time for him to find stillness and reflection. During the war, he'd be known sometimes for just disappearing. He'd leave a parliament meeting or something, and he'd disappear to the English countryside, where he'd be painting a landscape, where he was not known to be a particularly good painter, but this is just something that he did to get away from the noise of every day. And in some of his biographies, he credits this with giving himself the space to think deeply about all the issues that were going on in the world. And quite often, some of the most famous speeches that he gave, he was out painting or building a wall on his property right before he wrote those speeches. So, okay, and right now, again, with what's going on, everybody's been suddenly told to stay home. Maybe you had a good routine going, and now you've kind of lost it. So as you're going about building a routine, I really want to emphasize, try to find resiliency in it and always be flexible. Sometimes perfection can be the obstacle to the good. So for me right now, I used to always get up at 4:15 in the morning. I now have a newborn at home, and I'm responsible for him first thing in the morning. I can't always get up at that time now. I'm much more at his schedule. However, I have set for myself that no matter what though, I still want to be up and moving before the sun comes up. So that might mean 5 o'clock. Not what I'm used to, but I'm making adjustments as I go along. If you're really working towards something and you fall, just get back up, try again. Nobody's perfect. We all have those weeks where we slip. Don't get discouraged. And again, as I've been talking about, but focus on the process, not so much in any specific activity. Maybe you do implement a very good running routine, but as you get older, your knees give out. Now you got to pivot towards swimming or bicycle riding or whatever it is. But because you've mastered the process of building a routine and implementing new habits, you're able to seamlessly transition into something else, and you're still getting out there every day and getting exercise that you need. And I would just say again, find peace and comfort no matter where you are in life, no matter what's swirling around you. This photo here is a photo of me on a military cargo plane flying across the Sahara Desert. After sleeping for a couple hours, I woke up and my body just told me it was time for me to get up, move around, stretch. It's time for me to get my exercise in, and I rolled out my yoga mat right there on the plane and just did a little routine. Again, just find ways to do what you can. Okay, so now I'm just going to transition a little bit, talk about understanding time. Just give you kind of a quick overview of the various dimensions of time, and how understanding it will give you the tools to create, as author Rory Vaden puts it, the ability to multiply it. So just starting real quick, just some of the background on all this thinking. One-dimensional thinking around time management came out really with the rise of the Industrial Revolution. It's often identified with the Taylor production system. Very much applicable to making widgets in a factory. That's where we start to get terms like do more faster, efficiency and productivity. Yes, these will always be important things in our lives, in our working lives, and also in our personal lives. We always want to refine what we're doing, so that we're doing more, getting more accomplished in our day. However, those benefits are going to be limited. They will eventually cap out, as we can only fill so much into our glass. There's only 24 hours in a day, and the question always does come, well, what should I focus on first? So that's where we can start getting into 2- and 3-dimensional thinking. 2-dimensional thinking closely associated with prioritization. 1980s, you saw Dr. Stephen Covey, and some of his products, some of his famous books included the Eisenhower decision matrix, which was built around this XY axis around urgent and important. It was just a system for starting to prioritize things on your to-do list. A lot of different systems kind of came out of this thinking. I personally have adopted, it's called the Franklin Planner, the Franklin method of prioritization. Every morning I wake up, I just brainstorm my to-do list, and then go through their methodology for ranking what I view to be my priority for the day. However, when the shortcomings with this is what some call the tyranny of the urgent, where everything feels like it's urgent. We're constantly, more and more is being thrown on our plate. Every day we're looking at our to-do list, and it keeps getting larger and larger. So how can we start getting things off our plate? So last couple of years, last 5 or 6 years, a guy named Rory Vaden came up with a concept looking at 3rd-dimensional thinking around time, where he added this third point, significance. which poses the question, how long will it matter? And with this, you can start to focus on, most importantly, what will create more time tomorrow. And understanding that third dimension around this, he created this framework called the focus funnel. So the focus funnel starts right here. You take your to-do list and you start to send it down through here. So and with this, what Vaden explains is we're giving ourselves 5 choices and 5 permissions. The 5 choices being eliminate, automate, delegate, procrastinate, or concentrate. And with each one of these choices, we're giving ourselves an emotional permission to do something. So we're sending our to-do list through, and we come up on something that we don't know why it's there. Maybe it's just something we've always done. It's just always been done that way. But you can start to ask yourself, do I really need to do that? Do I need to do it right now? Do I need to do it today? Does it even ever have to be on my to-do list? And you can look, you give yourself your permission to ignore it and eliminate it. Next, we come down to automation. As you go through the funnel, maybe there's a task you have on your plate that, in order to get off your plate, you're going to have to build a new process that automates it. So you give yourself permission to invest time, money, resources into creating a new process that's going to automate it, so it's no longer on your to-do list. So you give yourself permission to invest 2 hours to invest in something, say, like bill pay. So you invest that time up front, and then it ends up saving you 30 minutes every week. And then, by the end of the year, the amount of hours that you've saved on paying your bills is more than return the initial investment to set up automatic bill pay. Or maybe you come down and there's a task you have on your list, and you say, you know what, there's someone else that can do this. And the thing that I have to accept, the permission I have to give myself, that maybe it's going to be imperfect. It's not going to be as good as me doing it, especially starting out, but I'm going to train someone else to do it. And over time, the amount that they're going to save me by taking it over is going to far outweigh, some of the initial hurdles and imperfections as they begin to take over that task for you. Okay, so some tasks we come down and, we couldn't eliminate it, we can't automate it, we can't delegate it, but, we're not ready to work on it right now. And we're just going to have to accept that for now, it's just going to be incomplete. And what Rory Vaden, his book around this whole concept of the focus funnel, called Procrastinate on Purpose. You're giving yourself to send that right back up to the top of the funnel for a later date when you're able to revisit it. And maybe when you go back down again, you've had a good brainstorming session and you realize, actually, there is someone else who can take that off my plate. Or you send it back down through and you decide now it's the time to concentrate on this task. And I'm going to give it my 100%, 110%. And in order to do that, I have to give myself permission right now to protect it. And that means, in order to focus on this task, I'm gonna set aside everything else. I'm gonna turn off my email application. I'm gonna turn off my phone. And for the next 4 hours, I'm gonna make sure that this task gets completed, because I know that this right now for my organization or in my life is the most important thing. So, and then to that, to protecting what we concentrate on, I just really, if nothing else, I really, especially right now, given everything going on, even just the modern workplace that we find ourselves in, be okay with setting boundaries, and start by asking yourself some of these questions. What do you need to set yourself up for success? How can you serve yourself in order to better serve others? Don't be afraid to minimize distractions while doing this, whether it's turning off email, phones, and just sitting down and working deeply on whatever that task is in front of you. What's going to be most significant tomorrow? And as I said earlier, that this extends into our personal lives as well. And when you do set these boundaries, make sure you're communicating them to others. Let them know that you've heard them, you've received their requests, but for right now, there's something else that you need to focus on, and this is how you'll be tackling it at a later time. And on this slide, I was partly inspired by this sign here. This was something I visited a client site several months back to have a very similar conversation to what we're having right now. And we had learned that within this company, their internal art department was just finding that in order to do the graphic design work that they were being tasked to do, it was becoming impossible with the amount of emails and requests for them to be in meetings and people dropping into their cubicles and so forth. So they banded together, they made a presentation to the company and said, we're going to implement office hours. And the first part of the day, we're going to dedicate to doing our creative work. We're going to work deeply on those tasks. But at 2 p.m., we invite everybody to stop by, send a calendar invite, whatever it is. But right now, we're going to focus on what our job is, which is the art department. It's to be as creative as possible for this company. So just to summarize, again, remember, this is about ownership and asking yourself, what does a good life look like to you? Do that work first. As you go to set out on any given day, remember, the little things in life matter. Those are going to be the things that set you up to do the hard things. When you understand the various dimensions of time, you can start to become a multiplier and start to look at your to-do list and say, what can I eliminate, automate, and delegate? And finally, don't forget that permission to protect. Set those boundaries. And just to close my presentation, I want to encourage everybody here. What's one thing that you can do today? Doesn't have to be big. It can be small. It can be simple. Two things. One, add to your routine to get you through this moment. And then, as we know, we've been living through this now for a number of weeks. Maybe things are going to start to shift in a few weeks from now. So start thinking about what's going to look like as best as you can beyond this moment. And finally, look at your to-do list and just think through, is there anything you can eliminate, automate, or delegate to someone else? So with that, again, thank you all for being here. And Marcus, I think you've been following the questions, and we'll see if we can answer some.
And thank you once again. Thank you for starting off the DLE virtual workshop with an awesome presentation. I was following the chat throughout the entire presentation, and there were some common themes that came up. Work-life separation, hard to stop working at 5 p.m. There is no off button. Staying in one spot all day. Childcare, finding a split between family and work. And because of all the free time, you feel obligated to work on big projects for your job.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to the first question. If you go back to slide 18, a couple of times in your presentation, you mentioned working or thinking deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please elaborate on what you mean by deeply?
Yeah, Marcus, that's a great question to kick this off. In my work in consulting, I've worked on a couple of different leadership programs, and a couple of times we would be developing curriculum around this question of time management, and I just felt like a lot of it really wasn't truly reflecting the workplace that we're all living in today. Certainly not where things are headed 5, 10, 15 years from now. So that really sparked my interest and curiosity into kind of diving into some of the literature that's been emerging in the last 5 years about where things are heading. And one book that's really influenced me very greatly, which I really recommend, it's called real simple title, remember, Deep Work by this author, Cal Newport. And what he talks about is the difference between shallow work and deep work. So shallow work is kind of it's the work that I think a lot of us today are getting sucked into, and it's really where we're starting to feel kind of the burnout. So it's things like the endless flurry of emails and being on endless email chains where kind of colleagues are just back and forth, or maybe it's you feel like you're being excessively invited to meetings that sometimes you're sitting there for an hour and wondering why you were even invited. And maybe if you even ask the question, no one could answer why your presence was being required. It can also be just some of the distractions that we have in our lives. Our phones that, they have our work email, but they also have our personal email. They have our banking. They have our social media feeds. And we're trying to sit there, and all these things are hitting us at once. So that's the shallow work. Deep work is the other work, though. It's the work that probably a lot of us set out to do. It's the real creative stuff, just like that art department from that client that I just mentioned. It's the things that take the most of our concentration to really accomplish, but they're the things that we can really feel most proud about. Myself in preparing for this presentation, I put a lot of time into it, and I knew if I was constantly on email, if I was constantly checking text messages and other things at all hours of the day, I was never going to put in the time. So I always made sure in the morning, every morning leading up to this, I carved out a couple hours a day where I did nothing but focus on this presentation, going back, reading some of the books that I've read in the past, and also just taking a step back to reflect, as to tie to my other point. So I hope that answers it. So really recommend the Cal Newport Deep Work. He's been on a bunch of podcasts. You can probably catch him elsewhere if you don't have time to read the whole book.
Ben, thank you for that answer. Also, just looking through the chat, a lot of people say it's kind of difficult right now to set boundaries. Overall, it's been a challenge working from home. Maybe their supervisor or coworkers do not seem to maintain boundaries around work and life right now, sending emails nonstop. What strategies do you recommend to navigate this situation?
First, I'd recommend taking a step back, and I think right now have an empathy for those around you. Even if it's your supervisor who can be difficult, even if it's coworkers who maybe you clashed with them back in the office, and this seems to be carrying on to work from home. Again, take a step back, recognize we're all going through this. There's a lot of uncertainty. I think there's a lot of panic in the air. So start right there. But next, to my point in the presentation, have communication, open dialogue with people. Go to your supervisor and let your supervisor know, I got my kids at home. I don't have other child care. That's not an option right now. We all know that. I'm going to have to put 4 or 5 hours a day into, helping them get through homeschooling. So maybe I can't work the normal hours that I was working before, but hey, these are the times though that I'm going to be dedicating towards getting these tasks done. And maybe you as my supervisor, you could clearly kind of set what the priorities right now, because it just feels like the whole world's spinning really, really fast right now. And I can't tell what is the actual priority. So definitely start there. And, also right now, just don't be afraid to have courage and speak up and call a timeout within the organization, call a meeting. And just try to get a dialogue going on what's working, what's not working. Just like that art department that I saw, they banded together and they put together a proposal and presented it to the whole company. And when we were there giving that workshop, the rest of the company was describing the very same thing, the question with boundaries. And we said, had you ever considered doing what the art department did and trying to figure similar policies and scheduling that works for what all of you are trying to do. So sometimes it's just being the first one, brave enough to put your hand up and be willing to put something on a slide and make a proposal to the organization.
Thank you, Ben. So I have a little bit of a lighter question. During your introduction, you mentioned that you were a treasure hunter. Can you point me to the pot of gold, please? But on a serious note, can you talk more about that? How does it fit into owning your day?
Sure. Yeah. Well, treasure hunting, this is, I think I described it at the very beginning as kind of an accidental hobby. I have an older house that's over 100 years old, and my property is wedged between a couple of even older properties, 200-year-old houses. And as I was doing yard work last year, I started discovering all kinds of treasure that was seeping up outside of the ground. Last summer I found several hundred antique bottles. I've been finding all sorts of other trinkets, all dated well over 100 years old. And it just slowly mushroomed into something that I do as kind of part of my daily practice. If I'm been sitting cooped up here in my home office for 6, 7, 8 hours nonstop, sometimes I just say now's the time to close the laptop, and I'm just going to go outside and walk around the yard along my stream, maybe dig a little bit in the ground and see what I find. And I just find by doing that, I allow myself kind of to clear my head a little bit. And often what I often do is I find some of the best ideas, some of the most clear thinking that I have about my workday, I get when I'm doing that. So I always try to make sure I'm writing down the ideas that I have into, the notes on my smartphone, or if I got a piece of paper with me, so I don't use it. I talked about Winston Churchill earlier. Not only was he a painter, I think I mentioned he was also a bricklayer. That's just what he did. He was an aristocrat, he was a statesman, and he loved to go out in his backyard and build a wall. And he even joined the tradesmen's union. That's so serious. He took his hobby. And also, just for me as a social thing, I've been trying to get away from every time I meet someone somewhere on the street and they say, "What do you do?" I try not to lead so much with work anymore. Sometimes I feel like I just kind of have a somewhat of an exhausted expression to me when that gets asked. So just kind of break the ice a little bit. Sometimes I find there's different people out on the street that maybe don't understand my professional career, but I can build a connection through my hobbies and other interests. And definitely, I'm also trying to, another practice I'm trying to build this year in 2020 is getting away from saying I'm busy when someone asks, how are you doing, and just responding with busy. I feel can kind of be a very disempowering. It can kind of say that I don't own my schedule. I'm just kind of being pulled around by everyone else. So to have something else that I can lead with, I've been out in the backyard. Check out this picture of this latest gadget I found out in my yard. Might be weird, but it's what I do.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it. I still didn't get the tips for the pot of gold, but
Marcus, I'll get with you. I'll get with you offline about this. But my barber, who's actually gotten me into this hobby and is kind of coaching me out through the ropes, he's been telling me he's been having visions of a pot of gold I'm going to find under a tree in my yard. So I'll get with you. I'll get with you offline about that.
I appreciate it, Ben. So similar to workouts and starting a new diet, it's really hard for individuals to start. What would you suggest would be a good first step for those looking to start getting better at time management?
Can you just repeat the first part of the question?
Yes. So what could be a good first step for those looking to start getting better at time management?
Okay. Yeah. Well, right what I said at the start of the presentation, and it's a little bit beyond the scope of this evening's conversation, but I do believe one of the DLE culture chats last week was on goal setting. So I really, first step, I just encourage everybody to do that higher level strategic view of your life. Where are you going? That will just give you kind of something to benchmark all these other things that come at you throughout the day. It can also help you. Maybe you're working in a job right now where you feel kind of stuck right now. You're not really clear why you're doing it. But again, if you've kind of set your goals for the future, you've looked at that strategic view. Maybe you're going to work this job for a year or two because you're getting relevant skills or building out your network and your resume and so forth. So that just gives you clarity every day that you're showing up. Why are you there? And what are you prioritizing? Why you're in that job? It's not where you're going to be forever, but why I am in that situation. I'm going to focus on picking up skills because I know that this is what this company is offering. I know that there's professional development opportunities. There's coworkers and there's mentors that I can find that can kind of help me get to the next step. So I'd recommend that, but if we want to get a little more granular on something like a routine or just implementing a habit, same thing. I really think everybody's different. I don't like to get too much into the weeds with telling people what they should do. You should do this diet or you should do this kind of exercise. Because a lot of times, frankly, I mean, a lot of people I know you said have been mentioning they have kids at home, they have all kinds of competing priorities. So to you, maybe exercise just looks like getting up 10 minutes earlier and just doing a couple exercises in place, and that's just what you can do right now. But it's going to help reduce your stress. It's going to help prepare you for when the kids wake up or for when you hit the ground running at work and you're inundated with all the emails and all the different requests. But but maybe not. Maybe your goals are a little more ambitious, and something like running is more of a hobby or a challenge that's keeping you motivated. So you want to become a marathon runner. So with that, that's definitely going to take a little bit more level of complexity and training to improve. But just remember, just like Admiral McRaven said, you do got to start somewhere, and it is with the basic first steps.
Then thank you for that. So in terms of a process, what do you recommend for a task tracking system? Pen and paper, or what does that look like?
So again, I'll give my disclaimer. Always start with what works for you. I can point some best practices that I've successfully implemented, and based on some of the research I've done, I think has some sound methodology. For me, keeping track of what I do every day, to what I point out, I have this planner. It's called the Franklin Planner. You can Google it. Partially influenced by the life of Benjamin Franklin, but since it got refined as newer methods of time management and so forth, kind of came into the conversation. But I enjoy the practice and just the habit of working with paper. I do maintain a digital calendar for work and for my personal life with my wife, so at any given moment I can look at my phone and know where I'm supposed to be. However, when I do set out every morning to kind of figure out what my personal priorities are, I do like to get away from my phone. I like to get away from the computer. I don't like to look at my email, and I just like to sit down and write out what my priorities are for the day, and then try to rank them with what I think I need to prioritize first. I do the same thing with my schedule. I look at the schedule and say, okay, I'm going to block off this time in the morning to focus on this really important presentation that I'm preparing for. And I also then other things that I'm working on. I like to record what I'm reading. So for me, professionally and personally, reading is a very important part of my day. So I like to record how much I read on that day. I try to stick to a chapter a day, but maybe because my baby needed me in that moment, I only got to read 5 pages, and and then every week I can go back and just see what I recorded, and as I'm planning out the next week, know where maybe I need to make up for lost time or make adjustments into my daily habit. So yeah, that's a little bit what I do. Like I said, just there's so many distractions in the world, and are kind of these one-size-fits-all devices that we carry in our pockets can sometimes just kind of add to the noise, and I like to get away from them as much as possible.
Thank you, Ben. So we have over 4 states represented in this workshop today. So depending on your geographic location in the United States, your travel restrictions may be a little bit stricter. How are you managing staying in one place all day?
How am I personally?
Yes.
Okay. So how am I managing staying? I'm stuck in my home in Canaan, New York, and working from here.
That's correct.
All right. Well, first of all, I mentioned at the beginning, I have a newborn baby at home. So for me, this has been a very surreal moment, just because I never know if I feel like my life is thrown off because of COVID-19 or because I have a baby at home. But what that's just highlighted to me is that all these tips, all these principles, kind of some of the fundamentals I've been talking about are applicable no matter where you are in the world, whatever circumstances you find yourself in, whatever is kind of swirling around you, whatever kind of crises are coming down. And when I first agreed to do this presentation, I was trying to reflect that, this question got thrown at me, how can we adapt this to where we're at right now with COVID-19, and how can we adapt some of the principles you were going to talk about before COVID-19 into where we're at right now. And I had a very hard time trying to come up with this. And I really remember, though, what I had learned in my deployment in 2017 to Cameroon had really taught me that it's all the same. When I was deployed overseas, it was something that came up in my life very quickly. I got notified that it was a possibility it was going to happen. Within 2 months of it, I was already shipped off to Texas for training, and another month or so, I was on the African continent. So my life got thrown upside down pretty quickly. And right from the very first day, I knew sticking to a routine, no matter where I was so vital. So when I was training in Texas, same thing. I got up at the same time every morning that I would have gotten it up as I was at home. I did reading. I even brought my coffee maker from home. So I just had that comfort. You know, I knew how important it was to me when I was back at home, drinking coffee with my wife in the morning before the sun came up. And just when I was away from her, I knew that around that same time she was waking up and she was also drinking her coffee. So as we both felt like everything had been kind of taken out from under us, we still knew that there was some consistency to our patterns. And as I got in the African continent, that continued, carried me throughout the entire deployment, knowing that no matter what circumstance I was going out into that day, every morning I had centered myself first. I expanded my mind. I was studying French at the time, and I'd done my exercise, and I was ready to go when it was time for us to go on a mission and go out into some of the communities that we were working to serve. I was my best for everybody that I was interacting with on a daily basis. So now you're asking me right now, COVID-19, I would just say I'm just doing more of the same. However, I will add that I've been doing a lot of reading this week on it's called oxytocin. This is part of our brain chemistry. I think it's a hormone that's associated with love and empathy, and I think it's something all of us should be very conscious of right now. You can Google it. It's great that we're adapting virtually. We're all trying to stay connected as best as we can. I hope that we're all reaching out to our family and friends, people that are out there in the world. But we also gotta know what we're missing, and a lot of what we're missing right now is making eye contact. We're not shaking hands. We're not hugging. We're not embracing people the same way we were, which would release this chemical oxytocin, which again is associated with love and empathy and all the good things that we have in life. And when we start to lack that chemical, that's when unhappiness and just a feeling of nervousness and all that can start to set in. So if you're feeling like, you know what, I'm doing all the right things, I got a good routine, I'm doing my best, and I still just don't feel right, just know that you're not alone in this. And I hope sooner than later where things can start lifting up and we can all get out there again, make eye contact, shake hands, and embrace, and just really truly start to feel part of a community again.
Thank you, Ben. So one last question from the chat. And we have several people that participate in this workshop that have kids. And they shared that having kids with the homeschooling, making them food, how do you deal with days where you just don't feel productive?
Well, first of all, as a new parent, I'm not going to pretend to be the expert or the subject matter, definitely not the subject matter expert on that. So any of you out there who I know in the community, I please do welcome any of your tips or suggestions on this. I know some of you have much older kids and have been through the newborn phase. I would greatly appreciate any feedback that you have, because it certainly is new ground. But no matter what, I've certainly felt that. I think we've all felt that. Just some days it just feel like a total waste, for lack of a better word. Maybe you're trying to have a virtual meeting with coworkers, and just because no one has any clarity on what the next month or two is going to look like, it's just impossible to come to a decision. Or we agree in that meeting we're going to carry out a couple of tasks for our company, and now that's out the window as soon as you get off the phone, because you need to help your kid with homework, or some other fire breaks out in your house that you have to go take care of. I just say this, and this is where having that routine is going to help. Just keep perspective on it. This isn't going to be permanent. This is going to pass. We can't control everything around us, but if we're setting ourselves up to be grounded, Just keeping an open mind and staying in touch with each other. I think we will all get through this. I would say it seems like a lot of workplaces are being very good with each other around this question. Just recognizing, you know what, right now we're not going to be able to get done everything that we used to back when we were collaborating together back at the office. And I hope that everybody's using this time for, longer term projects, professional development, personal development, things that are going to set you up for when we start to enter into a new phase. I'm not going to say go back to normal, because I don't know if it's going to feel like normal, but I remain optimistic. And I also just want to add, you mentioned that there are people from 4 states here, so we have a lot of good energy and a lot of good momentum going on in the Berkshires. I hope that some of you maybe who are living in some of the big metro areas, maybe looking for a little more space, maybe a little bit more peace and quiet now after this crisis. And I do hope that you consider joining us in the Berkshire community. We got a lot of great things going on, and I hope that we don't lose any momentum when we start to open back up.
And what a great way to wrap this up with the words of positivity. Thank you, everyone, for your questions, your interest, your participation in the chat. Thank you, Ben, for a great workshop. Before we close out, I'd like to hand over the microphone to Linda Dooley, who's the president and founder of the Dooley Leadership Experience. Linda?
Thank you, Marcus. And thank you to the terrific group of everyone, all the attendees on today's workshop. Your participation is a sign that this is the kind of programming we need to keep doing, and that it's meaningful. And the DLE is committed to provide vital learning, networking as a resource to you. You can guide us, though, by your feedback on the poll that we'll be receiving after we sign off today. Programs like this take a dedicated team to create, and I am extremely grateful to Ben and Marcus. You've done a lot of work leading up to today. I think it clearly showed to everybody. But also we had a support team that was behind the scenes. And I'd like to thank Kaylee Carmel, Chrissy Strum, John Semexon, Cooper Lerner, Sophia Romeu, and Morgan Mayer. Thanks, everybody. Moving forward, and we are. Registration is now open for our next ownership workshop. That's on May 20th. And the topic is a hot one. It's career literacy. It is getting instant appeal as we get the word out. Our guest speaker actually is been participating quite actively on the chat on this workshop. Justin McKinnon, entrepreneur and a principal scientist at the Electromagnetic Applications business, which is based at the Berkshire Innovation Center here in Pittsfield. Justin's going to be giving some gritty insights and applicable direction for carving a meaningful career path. You can register right now at dle.dooley.com/programs. The workshop is free, and that's thanks to the sponsorship of Dooley and Company. And just a quick note, a final note here about us, about the DLE. Our mission is to advance rising leaders, and that's through a commitment to premier professional development. Our program dates to 2008, but if you're discovering us for the first time, and I saw that a couple of you who are, welcome. If you're a regular, thank you. Thank you for your support. In addition to the ownership workshop, we're hosting several virtual programs that we've started since we've all been now in a working from home, self-distancing situation. And we're hosting a number of virtual programs that we hope will keep the community connected and also growing, and also connect you with ongoing professional development opportunities. So you see a couple of them listed on the slide. We've got a weekly breakfast club, which unites community members and newcomers from across the U.S. and beyond. We have had a participant from Haiti at one of our recent breakfast chats. And this is a lively, informal exchange of resources and tips for keeping us resilient and optimistic. Just bring your coffee mug and you log on, and we'll be chatting again on Friday morning at 7 a.m. Please join us. There's details that you can see at dle.dooley.com to log on and get information on how to get invited. But also we have a DLE culture chat, and that's coming up on May 1st. And this takes a deeper dive into topics that inspire personal and professional growth, and also what we call career ownership. In addition to the website, we've got details on the DLE Hub. That's our newsletter that's available on our website. We also have a very lively and active DLE Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn pages, and Kaylee's posting them in the chat. We keep them very active. You'll have links into how to get into both the Breakfast Club and Culture Chat. So thank you everyone for joining. Please take our quick bowl and make a special effort tonight to extend personal support to someone. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5:45. Thank you once again. The workshop has ended. Please follow up dle.dooley.com. And finally, please take the quick poll. Your feedback is valued. Thank you and have a great evening.